Now, what I mean by properly recording each transaction is we're going to be utilizing the 7 steps of transaction analysis that we learned in chapter 3. So, meaning we need to collect our source document, we need to analyze it, determine how it affects our business, all right? And then which accounts are going to be applied using the chart of accounts that's provided to you, and then determining using the debit and credit system, right? And then obviously we're going to go in one journal. Well, we have multiple books here. And then journalize it, okay? So let's go ahead and pull up the necessary worksheets that I want you to guys have. So for the Excel, I want you to pull up your general journal and your general ledger and your subsidiary ledger, okay? That's as far as what we're going to be dealing with just for today, okay? We're only going to be looking at those 3 worksheets for today. Second, for those who are downloading the worksheets, I need you guys to have your chart of accounts, okay? Your general journal, your check register, okay? And your purchase orders and your deposits. That's definitely going to be the first one, okay? As far as your subsidiary ledger, you will be utilizing that as well. So printing out, if you have already done so, all 32 pages or 35 pages. And same thing for your general ledger, all of it. We need every single one of them. Okay.
Sorry, can you repeat again the one on the Excel?
The Excel, I just need you to pull up your general journal workbook, your general ledger workbook, and your subsidiary ledger workbook. So for Excel, only 3 files. For Word or the proper papers, you're going to be looking at be looking at a lot. Okay, so yeah, you're going to need your chart of accounts, your check register / deposits, and your purchase orders. You need your general journal and your general ledger, as well as your subsidiary ledger. Okay.
Is the workbook on the Excel?
Workbook?
Yeah, you said workbook.
There's only there's only 3 that I want you to look at. I want you to only look at the general journal workbook,
Okay.
the general ledger workbook,
There are 2 general ledgers, so let me just take a look on the title. Okay.
and your subsidiary ledger. Now, depending on how fast your computer is, it could be a little lengthy or a little heavy and take some time to open. But as long as you can get it open, that's the best. That's good so far. Okay. Okay. So here on the side, I have my scenario on the side. It's up to you if you feel like you need it necessary to have the paper in front of you and then do the work on your full screen. Whichever one works for you. I'm going to make sure that I have the scenario on the screen at all times. Okay? Is everyone ready?
Yes, then.
Okay. So, very first thing that we got was we got $30,000 to invest. Or I'm sorry, we have a $30,000 investment. So with that money that we have, we on the 31st of May, Friday, right? So the bank we did banking business, right? And there is an asset available that is available to sell, right? And we decided to purchase the entire business. With that, so there was a business that was bankrupt, and we decided to buy that business. When we bought that business, it came with furniture, a coffee brewer, and we also bought out the business name. Okay? So right here, that cost us $4,000. Okay? And then it cost us for the furniture, it also cost us 1900 for the coffee brewer, and it also cost us 2100. So with this being said, we bought a business. Okay? So the question is, do we journalize this transaction? Yes or no?
Yes.
Why?
Because you already purchasing something. You have already outgoing, um, how should I say, expense on that. Plus, of course, you have to include the asset
Okay.
based on that, you know.
How does this affect our business?
Expenditures?
They are, let me see. Definitely not. They're not expenditures. These are all assets.
Okay.
Okay. Now, I'll give you a hint since this is probably the most, I guess, difficult question to answer. We do not journalize it because one thing is that we don't have is we don't even have a bank set up. You always, before doing anything, you need to have a bank because the bank is where you're going to determine all your business transactions. And in this case, I have $30,000 in my pocket, and I took advantage of this sale here that happened on May 31st and just bought out a business. But the question is, am I established a business yet?
Not yet.
No, we just bought it. So therefore, second thing we got to do is on the 3rd of June, we applied for a business name, but also for a business license, right? The next one's going to be the business license. So on the 3rd, we applied for a DBA name, which is basically to change the name to Coffee Cafe, all right? And that cost us $25 to do, all right? Now, before all in all, we're not even an established business yet. So therefore, us making this transaction is, we cannot record it because we don't even have a business yet. We don't have a license to do business yet. Okay? And second of all, we don't have a place to put the money. Yes, it can come out of our pocket, but ultimately, what was the number one rule? What is that assumption that we need to have that gap tells us to do?
Business entity.
The business and economic entity says that you need to create your personal and your business transactions separate. And the best way to do that is by making a bank account separate for your business. So right now we cannot record anything until we open up a business bank account. Okay? So with that being said, all this information that we're looking at, so on the 3rd of June, we decided to apply for a business name change, right? We're going to apply for it, right? And the total cost for that is going to be $25. Okay? So then the next scenario comes around, and it says here that on June 4th, we applied for the Nevada State Business License, okay? And that cost me $250. We also had to apply for the city business license, that which cost us $100. So remember, when you are actually opening a business, not only do you need to involve with the state of the state that you are currently residing in, you also have to go for the local government, right? Because ultimately they're going to define one, your taxes that you have to pay, what sales tax you have to pay as well, but also to make sure that you establish your location and it belongs to which county, so they can do their little what do you call it, reports and stuff on that. So again, you not only do you have to apply for the state, you also have to apply the local place that you do your business for. Okay, so in this case, I racked up another $350 cost in applying for my business license. Okay. But luckily, on that very same day, I decided to open a business checking account. Yay! All right. So, with that being said, now I can properly record all the transactions that have occurred prior to my business being opened in the bank account. Okay, so with that being said, the things that I will be looking at is going to be a checking account, okay, furniture account, because when we acquired the business, we received furniture. We also received a coffee brewer, and we also had a business name. In this case, we call that goodwill. All right, so the goodwill is your business name. It's buying out the company, whatever it is, okay? And we also made a profit on that sale, okay? We also need to incur business license and permit expenses, because we also had to pay for our Nevada state license as well as our local government license, okay, or the city license we call it, okay. And we also have to remember, we also had to make our name changed, so that's going to be considered part of the licensing, okay. So with that being said, I've listed out the accounts for you, but let's go ahead and double confirm in our chart of accounts that if these accounts actually do exist. So go ahead and pull out your chart of accounts, okay? For Excel, the chart of accounts is going to be inside the General Journal workbook, okay? So in this case, again, the chart of accounts is going to be organized based on the type of accounts you have. So here, I have all the assets that are going to be listed here, okay? I have all of my liabilities in my equity below, and then I have my revenues and expenses. So they are all categorized per se. Now, let's go for the very first one, which is checking. Do I have a checking account?
Yes.
You just opened.
Yeah, we just opened one, but I mean in my chart of accounts. Do I actually have an account called checking?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, 10
100.
100, good. Now the next one is furniture. Do we have just a furniture account?
Yes.
Yes, we do.
13,000.
13,000. Okay. And then do we have a coffee brewer?
Yes.
Yes.
15,010.
15010. And do we have goodwill?
1900.
1900. Good. And then lastly, do we have a license and permits expense?
Yes.
Yes, we do. Right here, license. And then, okay, so the next one that we're looking at is owner's equity. Well, of course, when we place everything into a business, what are you doing? You're establishing the equity of the company, right? Usually, the equity will always begin with the actual original investment. And in this case, it's supposed to match me $30,000 because that's my original investment. So where am I going to place it? I'm going to place it into equity. And do we have an equity account?
Yes.
Of course we do. Right here. Oh wait, equity expenses. Equity account is 30,000. Okay? So now that we actually have all of our accounts established and these are the exact things that we're going to do, let's go ahead and apply it into our general journal. Okay? So what was the date?
June 4th.
June 1st?
June 4th.
June 4th is when we finally established and built our business. All right? So we have a checking account. Okay? And that was for 10,100. Okay. Now, in this case, I already separated it for you, right? We're increasing our assets because we went to the bank, right? And we opened a bank, so we're going to just dump our money in there. Now, it's for the 21,625 because that's actually how much money we have in our hands, and we decided to just deposit all that money into the bank. So 21,625. Okay? All
Lynn,
right?
real
Yes.
quick, is the Excel formatted already?
It should be.
Okay, just checking.
If not, that's a pretty easy quick fix. It should be, as far as my best knowledge. I believe some of the worksheets you may need to reformat it, but for sure the dollar things are there.
Right there? Okay.
Thank you.
So furniture, right, was 1,300. You mean 13,000?
Now 13,000 I should do.
Yes. So again, when we looked up from above from our very first transaction, we know that it cost us, we received a total of $4,000 worth of furniture. Now in this case, because I'll let you know ahead of time, this furniture that we're going to do, we're going to sell it off. So I want you to just recognize it as just plain furniture. There's no specific to it because we're not keeping it. We're going to sell it out. So just keep it in the furniture location. And it's for $4,000. Okay. Then the next one is going to be our coffee brewer.
That is 15,010 for chart of accounts.
15,010, perfect. And it is for the amount of 1,900. Okay. And then let me see what else happened. We incurred goodwill, right? We bought out the business. We bought out the business with its name. So goodwill, which was for 1990, I believe. Or actually, let's confirm. What was it? 19.
19,100.
19,100.
19,000.
And we received it for 2,100. Okay. And then lastly, we incurred as well license and permit expense. License and permit expense, which was for
60,600.
16,600.
No, 60,000, 60600. For
Perfect.
license and permit.
Perfect. And it was for a grand total of 375. So again, that included 250 for our state, 100 for our city, and we also had to pay $25 to the government to change our name. So that gives us a grand total of 375. All right. And then, of course, with that being said, we have one more thing, which is going to be owner's equity. All right. And that should be for 30,000. And to be safe, or just to see if you actually typed everything incorrectly, you could go ahead and apply your formula if you'd like, just to double check that it does equal to 60,000.
Or 30,000.
Yeah, 30,000. Yes, sorry. Sum, and I'm going to highlight all of this. Does it equal 30,000? Yes, it does. Okay. Good. So, and then now we got to write our little description, right? We got to write that we had court costs, okay? We had a business license, and we also have a city permit, and we also purchased the business, okay? So, you could go ahead and fill it in right here. Court cost of 25. We had business. Actually, let's do NV. We'll write it word for word, and then when we move forth from that, we can go ahead and do it however you want to do it. Business license for 250, comma, city, and purchase business. Okay. Oop. Okay. So now that I fill in all that piece of information, now this is the part where we need to move to our ledger. Okay? We need to move to our ledger so we can create our running balance in each account. So let's go ahead and pull out our ledger. Okay? So this is where this concept has to apply. So we're doing the accounting cycle. We're applying step 3, and then we're posting it to step 4, which is posting it into the ledger. Now, for accounting purposes, this is highly recommended that every transaction that you do, you want to know the ending balance in each and every single account. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and look up every single account that I've recorded and properly journalize them in its proper little section. So in this case, I'm going to start off with my checking account. My checking account is going to be an asset, okay? And if we scroll down, it is in order based on category. So all your current assets are at the top. The middle is all your fixed, and lastly, everything else is your intangibles. Okay, same thing, vice versa for liabilities. It's going to be in order but based on its category. Okay, so in this case, all right, I'm in my bank, and if I scroll down, my first thing on my page should be my checking account. And I'm going to go ahead and also place in the date here. And for my notes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say I deposited money into the bank. Deposit. Okay. My post reference that I am going to be utilizing here is, well, where did I journalize this? What page in my journal did I journalize this? Okay, so if you notice, if you look at your journal, your page number is at the very top right corner. So in this case, my journal that I've located that I've had this transaction is going to be on page 1. Now what we do is we like to do acronyms here. So I'm going to go ahead and place in general. So J for general journal 1 to indicate what page it was on. All right. And if I find a discrepancy for every single transaction, I'd be able to look it up here saying, okay, it's on page 1 of your journal. So that's how I'd be able to locate my items. Okay. So in this case, I have increased my account by 21,625. Okay, so this one you have to format. But this is a quick, easy format. You're just only placing in the decimal points. Okay. All right, so here I've entered in that I'm increasing my checking account by $21,625. Okay, so here is where the normal balance is going to be. Now, of course, when we start off of our normal balance, all right, I'll show you what the formula is when we go on to the second one. But just by looking at this little piece of information here, if I increased my account by 21,625, what is going to be my balance right now? Same amount, exactly, because we just opened up our bank. So therefore, if I just had 0 in there, I just established that I'm going to debit my account with the 21,625, then it's going to be the exact same. And in this case, so you want to make sure that you are in the correct column as well, right? I increased my number by a debit, so therefore my positive amount, which is my normal balance, should be a debit balance. Okay? And then I'll go ahead and I'll show you how to do the actual running balance when we deal with our checking account again later, further on in the section. Okay. So that was checking account. Next one is going to be furniture. Now you have a few options. What you can do is you can scroll down and look for your accounts. If you notice that every single account has their associated account numbers on them, so you can search up a by account number. You can even search up, if you know how to use the search tool using Excel, the Control F, and then select the column that you want. Control F, and then type in what you are looking for. You can do that if it's faster for you. But in this case, I enjoy looking up each and every individual account just by scrolling down. So in this case, I've reached my inventory, which I don't need. And then right under inventory should be my actual furniture. Okay, right here, furniture. Okay, whichever one that makes it sense to you, or if you just want the quickest way to get there, you just need to know how to utilize Excel to be able to manipulate the data that you have on here. But in this case, I'm just going to scroll to find my answers. Okay, so here I found my furniture account. So I'm going to go ahead and place in my date here. Okay. What's my item or note that I want to place here? I'm going to go ahead and just write purchase business. Okay, because it came with furniture. My post reference is going to be General Journal number 1. And I increased my furniture by $4,000. Okay. By $4,000. So therefore, I should currently have a debit balance of $4,000. Okay. Now next is going to be the coffee brewer. So if you actually passed all this, a few things that you'll come across is you have office equipment, which a coffee brewer isn't an office equipment. And then after that's going to be actual equipment. Your actual equipment is going to break it down into miniature accounts. And this is exactly what I mean. So we have the main accounts and now we have sub accounts. And my coffee brewer is going to be a sub account. The overall account that I'm using is going to be my equipment, but however, I can go ahead and skip the actual one because I have an actual ledger for my sub account. So I'm going to go straight to my coffee brewer. All right. Again, I'm going to insert the date. And I'm also going to write in my items, or you could also, it's also referred as your notes, purchased business. Okay. General Journal number 1. And I increased my debit by $1,900. Therefore, my normal balance in my in my coffee brewer account is going to be for the $1,900. Okay. Is everyone okay with the pace that I'm going?
So far. In other words, besides from the general journal where you input all the information, this time you are itemizing it on the particular other journal or whatever the assets.
The ledger.
The ledger.
Yes, because remember, the ultimate goal or the ultimate reason why we have a ledger is to always know what is your balance at the end of the day, especially when you're looking at your checking account. Number 1 rule is you need to make sure you have enough money in the bank before you start buying all these things. And if you don't, and you keep journalizing, your bank is going to make all these extra charges because you're not being very careful with your accounting. You're just spending and not checking your account at all times. And then, of course, the bank is going to realize that and they're going to start charging you fees because you're writing checks out that don't work. And sometimes those checks could be bounced right back to you. So the bank is going to charge you for all of those exact fees. Okay. Okay, so that's exactly why we have the ledger. So we know that we have a balance at the end of every single time we do a transaction. Okay. So continuing forth on, we have our goodwill. So in this case, my goodwill is all the way at the bottom of my page. So here's goodwill. All right, 6.4. Okay, and I'm going to write purchase business. My post reference is going to be General Journal number 1. I increased my assets by 2,100. Okay. Now, rule of thumb is, for beginners at least, you should definitely record and post to your ledger exactly how you recorded it in your journal. You should keep in that order for two main reasons, okay? One is to make sure you don't lose yourself and by hopping over to other accounts. Second of all, with that applied first rule is that way your balances and you check mark every single account and you don't accidentally skip one and move on to the next transaction, and then ultimately that is what's going to be the cause and the reason of why you're going to have discrepancies when you're moving forth into the trial balance and whatnot. Okay, so with that being said, it is highly recommended that you try your best to keep it in order. We will be looking at accounts where I have my liabilities first or my expenses first and then my assets. It makes sense to go to your assets first because that's the first thing that you see. But in this case, you don't want, especially when we're dealing with multiple accounts like this, you don't want to just go ahead and jump forward, because oftentimes a very number one mistake that accountants do is they either do typos or they accidentally skip and don't record this in their ledger. So therefore, you're going to have a discrepancy. You're going to have overstated assets or understated assets. So in this case, recommendation is to just try your best to go in order exactly how you write it in your journal. Okay? So in this case, I finished posting to my ledger for my goodwill. So the next thing I'm going to be looking at is my license and permit expense. We already know it's an expense. The word expense is in there. So I'm going to go ahead and look through my papers or look through my accounts at the very bottom. Go ahead and select that expense tab and go ahead and search for the license and permit expense. Now in this one, because I created the chart of accounts, it will be in alphabetical order. Okay. So here I went too far and went to purchases. So I have to scroll up. So here's freight. Here's insurance. Here's labor. And then here is license and permit expense. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and indicate the date. I'm actually in here in my item, I'm going to disclose all the information that I've disclosed in my journal, right? I'm going to write that my state business license was $250, city was $100, and name cost me $25. So then I have a little point of reference in my mind that this is why my total business and license and permit expense gives me a grand total of $375. Okay. Post reference again is General Journal number 1. Debit is going to be for $375 because that's what I have it in my journal. It's an expense, so all, if not most, expenses are debited. Okay. So therefore, I currently have a debit balance of $375 in my license and permit expense account. Okay. And you're going to just exactly how you journalize it in your journal. So all of these are debits. So therefore, it's going to reflect in your debits on the debit side as well. Okay. So for instance, we move on to our last account, which is our owner's equity. You need to make sure that you don't debit the account. You know, because when we journalize it as a credit. So you want to make sure when you go to your equity account that it's on the credit side instead of the debit side. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and find my equity accounts. All right. And it should be the very first one here for my equity. So 6-4. Okay. Equity. All right. I'm going to write here original investment. Okay. And it's going to be for general journal number 1. And this time, not on the debit, we credited the account for $30,000. So therefore, my normal balance should be on the credit side for $30,000. Okay. All right. Any questions so far on how to properly journalize and post it to our ledger?
Lynn,
Yes.
I am trying to find equity in my ledger, and on the I actually printed mine out, so I don't see it in the papers of the Word doc. So where
Okay.
would I find equity?
Let me go. I could go ahead and look that up for you. So you said you downloaded the paper.
Yeah, I just went on and printed.
So journal of general ledger. So I'm going to go ahead and look it up. So this one, I actually had pages on here for the purpose of that as well. So we were looking for equity. So your equity account is going to be on page 23 out of 35. All right. Are you able to locate it?
Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah, you can always let me know since you printed it out and everything. So just let me know, and I'll let you know what page they're on. So were you able to follow along for the other accounts?
No, but I'm gonna go back and listen to the video later.
Perfect. Okay. So yeah. So all of those are going to be. So all of the accounts that you're looking at right here, they're also going to be in order by account type as well. So your assets are going to cover the first 17 pages. Then it goes your liabilities, and then your equity starts on page 23. And then so on and so forth. Your revenues first, then your cost of goods sold, and then lastly, your expenses should cover the last 5 pages. So best way to keep this organized is by separating it into piles of account types. So you have a pile of your assets, a pile of your liabilities, a pile for your equity, a pile for your revenues, cost of goods sold, and your expenses. That way you'll be able to locate it a lot quicker. All right. Just let me know if you have any questions for that, and I can go ahead and determine what those accounts are. Okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So with that being said, we finished our very first transaction. So how do we feel about journalizing?
Something I'm gonna have to get used to.
Just a matter of understanding as well. And then again, just go from one screen to the other. Just like
Exactly.
the first one.
And
General journal you input, and then what screen to input on those itemized separately. I'm using the word itemized on those other ledger.
that's
The-
that's completely fine. However you understand accounting is how you understand accounting. Just make sure the wording is similar. But that's completely fine. Now, we have the next 4.5 weeks to journalize. So Like, that's why I'm saying this is the most boring part of the rest of the class, because we're spending 4 weeks together tackling down every single transaction and properly journalizing them. So it is going to be tedious back and forth, back and forth. And this is exactly why, if you don't know this, that a lot of accountants, they never have one screen. They have either 2 or 3 screens for the purpose of doing this kind of work. Making sure that they have one screen for their transactions, one screen for their journal, one screen for their ledger. And this is how you properly do it by hand. Okay? All right. All right. So what happened next on June 4th?
Sold the furniture.
Oh, there's one more line right before that.
So, apply line of credit from main bank.
Okay. Is this transaction significant enough to record?
Not yet for the meantime, because you don't know how much would the line of credit be.
Good.
We haven't got the loan.
Say that again, Tennyson.
You're approved.
We have only applied.
Perfect. Good. So there will be a lot of scenarios like this where you're going to have to determine, is it something that you are going to record, or is it not something you're not going to record? So in this case, yes, you only applied. Second thing is you don't know how much money.
How much would be approved?
Exactly. So good.
Or how much you need for the business.
This is going to be because we applied for a line credit. It's whatever they give us. Okay. So good. This is a transaction that is not significant enough to record. All right. So then now what happened on page 2? Now what happened on June 4th, on Tuesday?
Sold the furniture,
Mm-hmm.
and so that would have to be in the ledger or general journal.
Okay. Rule of thumb. Journal comes first before you ever post into the ledger, because you need a post reference. So, and that's the steps into the cycle as well. Step 3 is the journal, then step 4 is the ledger. Okay, so in this case, we need to journalize it first, understand the transaction at hand, and then record it, and then properly post it. So in this case, so the scenario here is that I sold the furniture, right, for $2,000 cash. Okay. Okay. Before we move on, let's go ahead and deposit the money into our bank account, because here we have to deposit it as well for the $2,000 cash, because we don't have a cash account. We only have a bank account. So in this case, I'm going to backtrack real quick. So in your general journal worksheet or the deposits worksheet, you're going to have a check register. Okay, so when you write checks out, you need to make sure that you record it in your checkbook. Okay, and then the next page after that is your deposits. So this is where I'm going to be depositing my money either into the bank or I'm going to be withdrawing my money from the bank. But in this case, the word says deposit. So in this case, let's go ahead and backtrack to what happened that very day, that very same day, to deposit that money into our bank. So in this case, our receipts is going to be for the 21,625. Okay. So this one I have to format as well. All right, and I deposited that on June 6th. All right, so that means it should be in there in the bank currently for $21,625. Okay. All right. So make sure that you do this often and whenever you have a transaction that's been completed, or most cases, if you have cash laying around that's available, you want to make sure that you deposit it into your bank. Okay. Now let's go back to this. So here we're receiving. Mm-hmm.
In that case, you have the receipts, date, deposits. So, if the deposit delays 1 or 2 days,
Yes, 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 yes. That
you
does
have to put a
happen.
receipt date also.
Mm-hmm. But in this case, we're not the bank. This is our books. Exactly. So in this case, I said that I went to the bank and deposited this amount in my on my side. This is what I did. I have a deposit slip sheet telling me that I should have 21,000 in my bank. All right?
No, no, that's not my point.
Okay.
Does that mean, does that
Now,
mean that
let's say
whatever you, I'm sorry.
we we received it on second, and by any chance we didn't deposit on the second, and we keep the money with us, and we deposit it on the third or fourth.
Okay, so when did we open our bank account?
Fourth.
Exactly. So how can you deposit ahead of time if you didn't have a bank account?
No, 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 I'm not talking about the opening date. Now, let's say we go on the business, and one day we collect 10,000, and we
Mm-hmm.
couldn't deposit it on the same day. And we deposit, let's say Saturday, Sunday, we omit, and we deposit it on Monday. So, now our receipt date, do we have to record a receipt date separately, or this is okay?
Okay, now I see what you're saying. So what you can do is if that makes sense to you for your business, if you want to just collect all the receipts and then wait till 7 days later to deposit it, that's completely fine. In this case, I already went to the bank earlier. I opened it, so I had to deposit the money somehow because that's exactly what I recorded in my journal up here. I recorded that I placed money in my checking account. Okay? So if I were to make a whole bunch of sales, maybe not today, if I it just little side note, if I were to make sales, it's not required for me to have to deposit every day. I can definitely wait 2 or 3 days later to do it. But in this case, I want to make sure that because if I don't deposit that money in my bank, whatever that is it recorded in my ledger is supposed to reflect whatever's in my bank. So if I didn't make a deposit, then I don't have that cash in my bank account. Yes? Does that kind of answer your question? Yes, you can collect all your receipts. The date doesn't matter on when the receipt happened. The date that matters is when you actually deposited it.
Question,
Yes.
on the deposits, what's called this now? For the date, do you put the actual date that you deposited, or do you base it on the receipt? Because just like right now, for example, if, there are banks, regulation is that after 2 or 3 o'clock on a Friday, it's or Saturday, it's posted the following business day.
Okay.
What date would you put on your?
It's going to be the day that I deposit it. Why? Because I'm not the bank. This is my business. This is me keeping record that I did do the deposit. Now, again, how we know whether the bank cleared it is when we do our bank reconciliation, right? That's way when we look at our bank reconciliation, we can see, oh, I thought I made a deposit on this day. I checked my deposits and it does say I did do it, but the bank didn't clear it yet. So this just by you doing your deposits, it's going to lead up to the bank reconciliation. And then this case, this is my record because this is me. I went to the bank on this day. I deposited this day. So I'm going to record it. I'm not going to record it when it's in my actual bank account. I'm going to record the day that I to put the deposit in. And you're going to get a deposit slip as well. And with that deposit slip, it's going to tell you the day that you actually went to the bank to deposit it. It's not going to tell you the day that it will be available. Am I right? And that's your source document right there. Your source document is your deposit slip. It's going to tell you the day that you deposited the money, right? But that isn't the day that's going to be available. Okay, so that's your proof of transaction. That's your source document. telling you that you deposited the money this day. Yes?
Okay, I got it.
All right. Any other questions in regards to just deposits in general? Typically, yes, you are right. When you do your deposits, you're not guaranteed that the money is there 100%, especially if you're dumping $20,000 into the bank. You can expect that you're not all 20,000 is going to be available for you to spend. They usually break it up in portions, right? They usually allow you the first, depending on your bank and who you're dealing with, usually they'll have the available first $500, and then they'll transfer the whole thing within 2 or 3 business days, especially over the weekend. Again, like you said, Lynette, if you deposit on a Friday, most likely they don't work over the weekend, so it doesn't actually process until Monday. Okay? And yes, so again, and that's exactly why we do our bank reconciliation, just to ensure that the money that we have is correct and available.
And the receipts and deposits
Mm-hmm.
will always have to be the same amount? You're referring to the amount on that?
No, it doesn't always have to be the same, because what you can do is you can collect like 4 or 5, 6 different transactions or money, and then wait till the end of the day or whatever. So you could collect maybe like 5 or 6, 7 receipts, wait till the end of the day to deposit the total amount. And we will be doing that when we actually start doing our, when we actually start diving into the merchandising portion, when we actually start accumulating sales. Okay?
I got it. Thank you.
All right. So I'm going to go back to my general journal. So now now let's go ahead and complete the second transaction here. So here we sold our furniture for $2,000 cash. Okay, and it says right here that we request a new ledger account to record, okay, the loss. So here I have already created it for you. So in this case, there's no need to actually create or request a new account because it already exists. All right. So in this case, what you can do is temporarily, because I guess I haven't established it yet with you that I've already created it, but go ahead and place it into miscellaneous expense. Miscellaneous expense is just another fancy term for placing money that you don't know where to put. Okay? It's just an account that you don't know what to do with this money for. So it's going to just be in the air. It's suspending. We don't know where to put it, but we're placing it somewhere that we know that when we need it for another time, that we can go ahead and do. Okay? We know where it is. So in this case, all right, my first thing that I received was cash for $2,000. Okay? Now, our original assets that we purchased for is supposed to equal to $4,000. Now, with the debit and credit system rule, you cannot, with the historical cost as well, you cannot lower the value of what you originally purchased the furniture for. Okay? You can only either recognize a loss or a gain. And in this case, because you requested to create an account for the loss, I'm going to tell you just place it in a random account. Okay, in this case, the random account is called miscellaneous expense. So we haven't properly recognized the loss just yet. We just don't know what happens when we're dealing with the $2,000 discrepancy. We don't know what to do with that extra $2,000, because in this kind of sense, it's not that we actually truly lost $2,000, because we originally purchased it for $4,000. But you can't always assume that when you sell your item, it's going to be for the exact amount that you paid for it. So this is assuming that we have incurred a loss. However, we cannot change the value of the furniture. So because we are taking away from our entire furniture amount, we need to credit it by 4,000. So again, we debit it because we have it. Now that we don't have it because we sold it, we got rid of it, we need to credit the account. All right. So as just as displayed, let's go ahead and use our chart of accounts to determine the account numbers and then post it in our journal. Okay. So checking account, we know as 10,100. All right. I'm going to give you a hint. Miscellaneous expense is going to be considered an other asset. Right. So can someone tell me where I can find the miscellaneous expense? Hello? Are you guys still there? Okay.
I'm looking my the COA on my computer.
Miscellaneous expenses 1990.
19.
1994.
Good, good. All right. My checking account was I already said 10,100. What was my furniture account again? Do you guys remember what it was?
Furniture account is 13,000.
Yes. You could also look from your previous transaction that my furniture account was for 1,300. So let's go ahead and skip a line because we're doing a brand new transaction. It's going to be for the same day, June 4th. Okay. And we're going to recognize it as we received cash, right? In this case, we received cash, but we don't have an actual cash account. So our assumption is we're going to take this money and we're going to deposit it in our bank at the end of the day. Okay? So here I'm going to go ahead and write in that I received the money, the cash, and I'm going to place it into my checking account right away. So in this case, 10,100 for $2,000. Okay? My miscellaneous suspense account, okay? It's my random account. It's a placeholder account. Miscellaneous suspense. All right. And it was for 19,990 for the $2,000. Okay. And lastly, we're going to credit our furniture account because we sold it. We're getting rid of it. So therefore, we need to credit the account, furniture account, okay, which is for 13,000. Okay. And again, to speed up the process of whether your debits or credits equal or not, you can just go ahead and do the formula right into the cell to add up to make sure that you didn't make any typos. Okay? And it's supposed to add up to exactly $4,000. Okay? Good. And I'm also going to go ahead and make a note here that I actually sold the furniture and I actually had a loss. Okay, so right here I'm going to go ahead and indicate loss on sale of furniture. Okay.
Can you indicate there on the loss dash 2,000? Not necessarily, or the mere fact that you already have booked the debit.
Yes, it's already self-explanatory. You can, if you'd like to be super detailed, but it's pretty self-explanatory if you, because the numbers that you have in your debits and your credits, you automatically know if your asset cost you $4,000 and you got $2,000 out of it, it's already written right there that you have incurred the $2,000 loss. You can be descriptive and be more, you can be more descriptive by adding in extra details if you'd like. It's clear, it's all up to you. It's whatever you like. Okay? But in this case, I'm telling you, just do loss on sale of furniture. Okay. All right. Now this is a complete transaction here. So let's go ahead and post it to our ledger. Okay. So of course, we're going to look at the first thing that we did. So the first thing that we did is our checking account. So we're going to go to our assets. Okay, so checking should be on page 1, the very first thing that we did. And I'm going to go ahead and type in the date. So this is actually where you can fill in as much details, as much information as you'd like on here. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and write, sale on furniture. Okay. General Journal number 1. And it was for $2,000. Now, watch me closely because this is exactly how you're going to calculate it. It's pretty straightforward. What's a debit plus a debit?
I'm sorry, repeat again.
What is a debit plus a debit?
Just the grand total of the debit, of both debits.
Exactly. But in this case, if you are using Excel, this is how we find a running or a normal running balance. So for example, this is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go into my normal balance on the debit side. I'm going to go ahead and punch in my equal. I'm going to take the 1 above it. All right. Of course, I'm going to add my debits and I'm going to subtract my credits in the same line. Okay. And therefore, I'm going to go ahead and press the enter button. And here it automatically calculates the grand total of 2,000 added to my 21,000. All right. And with that being said, I can also drag that formula down all the way down to the bottom of my actual table. Okay. And if by doing that, it's going to automatically fill in my whole entire running balance as my $23,000 and 23,625, right? Now, every time I punch in a number, whether it's a debit or credit, so if I punch in, let's say 150 in my debit side, it will automatically calculate it. If I punch numbers in my credit side, it will subtract it out for me. So in this case, this is me speeding up my calculations because I've entered in a formula and all I have to do is now just enter in my debit or credit and it will calculate it for me. And this is where every time you enter in information, it will update every single cell for you. Okay? But of course, I don't have that, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of these numbers. So there you go. We are still at 23,625 until further notice. Okay? Isn't that pretty cool? So it's a way to speed up your calculations. Now, with that being said, every single time you open up Excel, you may come across that 5% error where it will not calculate or recognize the formula. So you may have to re-enter in the formula for Excel to be like, aha, okay, I'm working again, I'll recalculate it, okay? Reason being so is because imagine this. How many accounts do we have in this entire workbook? And how many times are you going to create that same exact formula? So every time you enter in a new formula for every single spot, you're making the file heavier and heavier, and Excel has to work twice, 3 times, 4 times harder now because it needs to recognize which formulas you are entering in and where is it supposed to calculate. So again, that's the 5% accounting error right there. Is Excel will be slow in that kind of area, okay? Again, 95% of the time, the accounting error is due to humans, okay? We may punch in the wrong number. We might punch in the wrong account, okay? So the only person you can blame mostly is going to be yourself,
No, the computer.
not the computer, okay?
No, I'm saying it's a computer's fault, not us.
All right. So now that we finished our checking account and we updated it, so we have a total of $23,000 and 625. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and scroll down to my next account, which I labeled as miscellaneous expense. So that should be the very, very last page. I believe it's page 17 in the Word file. Okay. So miscellaneous expense. Okay, so now this is my first time entering in data for this expense. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and indicate here that I incurred a loss on sale of furniture. All right, because that is exactly what I'm placing this money for. I don't know where to place it, but I know that this $2,000 is recognizing the loss on my asset. And I know that I debited it for a reason. Okay. So this is what I was talking to you about, skipping forward and saying, hold up, wait, furniture comes before miscellaneous expense. But again, because you guys are beginners, I would highly recommend you to go to do it in the exact order, because oftentimes when you're dealing with 20 accounts, just because you know that they're in a specific order and you jump around, you're more likely to forget where you left off or which account you have entered in information. And especially if the account is for the same exact day, you will get confused and you may screw up. Okay? You might double enter in the same exact transaction that has already happened, or you may forget the transaction that you have written already. Okay, so that's why general rule of thumb for beginners especially, to not to do it in order, so you don't ever come across that that part where you will run into either forgetting or double entering the same exact transaction. Okay, so there you go. I've updated it here, 2,000 for my miscellaneous expense. Okay. Now I can properly go scroll all the way up to find my furniture. I don't remember what page furniture is on, but I can let you know that furniture is going to be furniture. Oh, I think I misspelled furniture. Yep, I did. It's going to be, all right, furniture is going to be on page 9, okay, out of 39, all right? Another way that you can utilize the Word document is, again, I've also labeled their account numbers on the side. So if you want to spend the time to just look at the corner of every single one to find out where you are, you may do so as well. Okay. So in this case, I am scrolling up to find my furniture. Inventory. I'm getting close. So here's my coffee mugs inventory. Okay, furniture is right here. Okay, I'm going to also put in the same transaction here. And this time I'm going to write in here that I sold the furniture. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and write my General Journal 1 because that's exactly where I placed this transaction. General Journal 1. And this time, I don't have a debit. I recorded it as a credit. So in this case, I'm going to place in my $4,000 credit, and I'm going to go to here and apply that same exact formula that I did above in the bank. I'm going to go up 1, which is taking the total amount of your current balance. I'm going to add any debits, and I'm going to subtract any credits in that very same row. Okay? And it's going to get me 0. Or in this case, if you have it on comma style, it's going to be a dash. Okay? All right? And in this case, I'm going to leave it as is because I don't think I will be incurring any more furniture expenses as of now. So I'm going to go ahead and leave the formula in there. You just need to know that at the end of the day, your formula is going to be 0. Okay? All right. All right. Any questions in updating in regards to where we are right now? Okay. So now that we just finished our ledger, we can go ahead and continue. Okay.
Gonna have to go back and look, so I'm with you on that one.
I'm just following basically.
No, I have to tell you what to do. You're gonna tell me what to do in 2 weeks from now.
Okay, do this and do that.
Now, it is the end of the day. I still need to remember I have to do something. What do I have to do? Where did my cash? Say that again?
Journal?
Not the journal. Okay. What did we do with the cash?
Closure.
Hold on, I heard someone say close. What are we closing out?
Do you have to look
I
at the
just took, well,
Okay. What was that? Was that Vina?
yeah, I just took a while.
Okay. It's not going to be closing out anything, right?
Balance.
Okay.
We have to do the deposit of the $2,000. We didn't do that.
Correct. There you go. Because what did we do? What did we do when we received the cash? We placed it immediately in our checking account. But did we actually deposit the money yet?
Not yet.
Not yet. So therefore, we got to go to our deposits. So find that paper. And we're going to know that we have another $2,000 transaction, right? We received $2,000, but here I'm also going to deposit it right away because it's the end of the day. The assumption is we should just try to visit the bank every once in a while, right? In this case, I'm going to do it today. So June 4th. So therefore, my total amount that I deposited is going to be $2,000, okay? So again, I don't have a cash account or cash on hand account, right? So the assumption is every time I receive some form of money, whether it's cash, I'm going to deposit it either at the end of the day. So because I'm going to record it as if I did place the money into my checking account. So make sure that at the end of every day, okay, we make our deposits. Okay, good.
The total amount, right?
No, in this case, it's because when we went to the bank, that was the first thing that we did. We deposited the money already. Now I'm assuming we sold the furniture towards the end of the day, so we received another lump sum money. But because the one thing I did is I didn't put it in my cash account or cash on hand, I placed it in my bank. So therefore, I have to take that extra step to actually go to the bank and deposit it. Okay? If I just had cash on hand account, right? Then I can do whatever I please with the money in my hand until I actually deposit it. But in this case, because I wrote that it's a checking account, the assumption is I have to go to the bank and deposit it at the end of the day. At least by the end of the day. Okay, in this case, because the morning happened, I already deposited the money in the bank already. Now this transaction has happened, therefore I'm going to do the same exact. So you can have multiple transactions in one day. The first one is because I was already at the bank. I opened the bank account. So the assumption is I've already deposited the money in there. This is a completely separate transaction because now I'm dealing with people who want to buy the furniture. So it's going to be a separate thing. Okay? All right. I think right here is going to be a good place to stop. And then we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we'll continue to do the rest. So we completed June 4th date. Okay, so we'll continue with June 5 after the break. Okay, so right now it is, I'm going to call it at 10 o'clock. So let's do 15 minutes today. So please be back no later than 10:15. All right.